Hello, everyone. I'm Justin Sears, and I run marketing at Lucidworks. We have a great program for you today. Let me set the stage for our two speakers and their joint presentation called Connected Experiences Are Personalized Experiences. For background, Lucidworks is a software company, and we offer a suite of products that make up a connected experience cloud designed to delight consumers and empower employees. Will Hayes, our CEO, introduced Lucidworks' vision for the Connected Experience Cloud during his keynote address at our Activate user conference this September. Will knew, and our company knows, that our customers have adopted the CXC to transform their businesses, and many of those customers shared their experiences during the Activate conference. Even so, we knew that we needed more help telling the story of how connected experiences are personalized experiences. And then we found Brendan. Brendan Witcher is a principal analyst at Forrester. In his research, Brendan covers such consumer-oriented cross-vertical topics as e-commerce, personalization, omnichannel, CX best practices, engagement strategies, and conversion optimization. Today, Brendan will share the results of his team's original research, commissioned by our company, on how connected experiences are personalized experiences. That full research report is available for download on lucidworks.com. Will Hayes will follow Brendan. He will share our company's vision for creating connected, personalized, omnichannel experiences. In your On24 webinar portal, you'll see a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please send us questions during the presentation, and we will leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer as many of those questions as we can. Without further ado, Brendan, please get us started.
Great, thank you very much. It is good to talk to you today. I'm looking forward to discussing this topic with you and then being joined by Will a little bit later. So let's get right into it. We've got a lot to go over and a lot of things to discuss. You know, I spend a lot of time sitting with our clients, talking to them about the industry and technology and things you could do and what you should do and how you're able to operationally execute on digital excellence and how to create great customer experiences. But one of the things that I often find is that companies today seem to think that this is today's consumer. They're just sitting around lollygagging on their couch, getting ready to buy something, right? This is all that they do. The reality is this person doesn't exist. They're a mythical creature. This concept of a e-commerce buyer, a pure e-commerce buyer is like a dragon. They don't really exist. You know, we like to talk about them. We think they're cool to discuss. But the reality is that today's consumers, they shop the way they shop. They buy the way they buy because they have certain triggers. And it's not because of the things that we can offer them as products or as services. And the reason that no longer really wins with customers, I'll explain through an example in a little bit. But the reality is that every customer's experience is situational, and it's situational to them. And in fact, we see more and more that today's consumers, these digitally savvy consumers, expect brands to understand them, especially in this day and age. And we thought that digital was ubiquitous in 2019. Oh boy, it is just really taken off, really heading into 2020 and now into 2021. We're going to see more and more of this sort of expectation. Unfortunately, a lot of companies today, quite frankly, just simply don't understand that they don't know a lot about their customers. They don't really know a lot about their business. And so because of that, they feel like they're doing the right things. This may sound familiar. They feel like they're doing all the right things. You know, they read Internet Retailer Magazine or the Wall Street Journal or USA Today or whatever it is, and they say, you know, it seems like I should be getting the results that I want, but they're not. And the reason that they're not can be tied to a few certain elements. A lot of it has to do with their vision and understanding of how the organization really does connect with the customer. Now, to do this, you really need to understand the customer. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people think they understand who the customer is and what they want and what they need. And I'm going to show you why that's not necessarily true. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to close your eyes or just, you know, kind of get into your mind's eye and think about the experience of going to a grocery store. Imagine going to a grocery store and you walk in and you look around and you realize there are no shopping carts. Now, you know this grocery store. You know there should be shopping carts, right? But you see there's no shopping carts, and you've got a lot of shopping to do. So you walk up to the manager and you say, hey, where are all the shopping carts? And the manager looks right at you and says, we decided to get rid of the shopping carts. They didn't, we couldn't prove they had any ROI. They're hard to maintain. They're hard to manage. So we just got rid of them. As a consumer, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about not having one of these devices to do your shopping for groceries, especially if you have to buy like a week's worth of groceries, or maybe you're having a dinner party and having a lot of people over? Now, last year, I asked about 50,000 people that question from Stages. And so I know your answer. Your answer is no, you wouldn't do that. You would find somebody else. And the reason you would find somebody else is because you have choice. Consumers know they have choice. And it doesn't matter if it's a coffee maker, $5.29 college savings plans, car insurance, whatever it is. We know we can get those things anywhere. And I know that because I ask the audience, like, where can you buy a coffee maker? I don't get responses like 5 or 10. I get hundreds, thousands, infinite. That's the way people respond to this. That's their mindset, right? And then I ask them, okay, so what you're really telling me is that even though this grocer has every product you need, you're willing to walk away, right? In addition to that, how many things did this grocer screw up on and you're willing to walk away? Just one thing. To leave a store that you are familiar with, comfortable with. You may even know people that work there, right? And the reason is because we know we have choice. So what is the value of getting the experience right? It's everything today. I know a lot of people say that, but as an analyst, I have to prove it. So I just proved it to you, right? This is really important, but it's also easy to understand, like, what does it mean to get the experience right? I can show you what that looks like too. Now, this is a very interesting statistic. 61% say, unlike to return to a website that does not provide a satisfactory customer experience. The percentage doesn't make it terribly interesting. What makes it interesting is the word satisfactory. Well, why would that be? It's because satisfactory is subjective, right? To each of us, what is satisfactory is different. What I want versus what someone else wants, what else someone else wants is going to be totally different from an experience. And so while lots of companies think Forrester is going to get on a phone call or a webinar like this and talk to you about, a silver bullet, there is no silver bullet. It's never going to be a silver bullet. There's going to be silver bullet ideas. And that's what we're going to express to you today. But there's never going to be one thing you can do and win every customer, because the fact of the matter is when you get those experiences wrong, when you use the wrong tools in the wrong way or not in the most efficient way, this is what ends up happening. And by the way, if you don't recognize that, that's customer experience right there, right? And so this is the problem that we have, is that we are creating these experiences for customers who are digitally savvy, expect great experiences. They expect great experiences everywhere that work for them, and yet we're not delivering on it. In a world where consumers are channel agnostic, and they're becoming more so, but expect digital to serve at all points on the path to purchases, companies struggle in lockstep, stay in lockstep with consumers due to channel disconnects, missed opportunities, and inefficient technology solutions. Now, that's a lot of words, and it sounds very Forrester-y. So let me show you some graphics to represent those things so they're a little bit easier to think about. Capturing dialogue means that you're not only creating experiences, but you're using those touch points and all of those touch points to build that view of the customer. Whether it's through chat or smart TVs or email or stores or marketing or text messaging, wherever we can figure out how to create a dialogue with the customer becomes an ingestion point for information about the customer. Okay? And what I'm going to say to you is not probably going to blow your mind, but when I say it out loud, a lot of people seem surprised to hear it. When I say you cannot create great experiences for customers that you don't understand, period. There really is no question about that. You can guess, and you might get it right once in a while, but you're more likely not going to get it wrong. I could take 100 blind squirrels, let them loose in a park, and a few of them will find nuts. It doesn't mean, that they aren't blind. All I've done is prove statistical chance. Right? But when you can actually know the customer and get those experiences right, that's what moves the needle. What does it mean to really know the customer? Again, a lot of companies think they really understand this, but the customer is complex. The customer is more complex from a digital perspective than they've ever been, from a shopping perspective they've ever been, because they have choice and they have ways of engaging, ways of shopping. But fortunately for us, we actually find that consumers are willing to talk to us about themselves more than ever. And our tools that we have today to serve them capture information about our business, about how things play out, and about how our business operates. in order to be able to make better decisions. And so, you know, a lot of this, you're starting to see a theme kind of develop here. And I'm going to show you what that theme really means, because many of you, since about 2015 or so, probably started saying terms like, we need to be customer obsessed, we need to be customer centric. You know, if I had to put 3 words after this, it'd be blah, blah, blah. Because the reality is that lots of companies say that. In fact, they say things like, you know, we want to make it convenient, simple, and easy to buy from us. Does that sound very customer centric? Well, convenient, simple, and easy, first of all, is subjective, right? What is convenient, simple, and easy to somebody is different than another, which turns these into very banal platitudes that don't actually help with your mission or direct or guide you. And secondly, to buy from you is not always what the customer wants to do at that very, very moment, right? There's different stages of that. Let's put it into perspective. We want is a very different statement than our customers want. And when I'm sitting with my clients and talking to them about, you know, what they're thinking, and these are Fortune 500 companies, right? And I'm listening to executives and boards of directors saying, we want to do this, we want to do that. And very few of them, and very infrequently, do they say, our customers want something. Now, if I correct them and say, you know, you're saying we want a lot, but really it's about what our customers want, they go, oh, well, I know the customer wants this too. I go, okay, where's the data to prove that? And they go, well, I just know that because I've been in business for 30 years. I'm like, okay, the consumer's changed more in the last 3 years than they have in the last 30, right? And I have 20 years of experience in this business and admit that nearly 17 of it is mostly worthless because our things have just changed, right? What our expectations are different because of the experiences we have everywhere. And the experiences we have with every kind of industry is affecting that. Let me give you an example. Let's pretend that you go to your banking website and you have a problem with your account. And so you open a virtual agent and, you know, they're sitting there and they say, oh, well, oh, you have a problem? Okay, let me check. And they say, okay, check now and see if that works. And the virtual agent did something on the back end automatically and it's fixed and you're all good. Now, because you're such a busy professional, you go off to your insurance website. There's a problem with your account. What's the first thing you're doing? You're looking around for that virtual agent, but you don't see it. You see a little link that says, if you have a problem, give us a call. Are you instantly disappointed? Yes. Did you compare them to another insurance company? No. You compare them to your last digital experience. And that's why companies who think, oh, we just need to follow what our competitors are doing, they're making a mistake, right? And they're using their opinions about their customers by saying, we want to do this, and overriding what their customers really want. You know, don't believe me. Take their redeeming statement for it, where they said, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. That is absolutely true. Now think for a minute about how many parts of your business are being run by opinions. Let's put it as a statement. Your business run by opinions. Now I have a few college degrees and a lot of college books that I still hang on to, and I don't remember a chapter or a class called Your Business Run by Opinions 101. Right? And there's a reason for that. This is not how we're supposed to be running our business. We need to understand our customers. Companies rarely design digital touchpoints in a way that enable them to understand an individual's needs, preferences, or pain points. This is being proactive about a data strategy. You are creating a form of digital blindness that inhibits your ability to properly design experiences when you just don't know what's going on. And so we need to finish the statement. You know, I said in 2015, we need to be customer obsessed. Here are the right words to follow that with. It requires us to be data-led. We need to be data-led as a company. And you've probably heard the term data-driven, right? Here's the problem with data-driven. With data-driven companies, they tend to make decisions that they've already made. They make these strategic decisions, and then they go find data to prove it. When I was working for a company, I had one of the executives come to me one day and say, hey, Brendan, you know, I was just with the board of directors and the other executives, and we decided we want to build a community where people can come to our website and talk about, you know, our products and the way they like to use them. So go find me data to prove that. So I did, because I'm a good little analyst and I'm good at that kind of stuff. So I can prove data. I can use data to prove anything, right? It's easy to do. What data-led companies do is they avoid preconceived notions about the customer, about their business, and they use data to drive strategic decisions. This is just so very important. Now, we did this study that I'm really proud of. I really enjoyed being a part of it, and I really encourage you to take a look at it. It's available to all of you who attend or listen to this. We got commissioned to do this study, and it was fascinating. I'm just showing you sort of our boilerplate, sort of who was involved in the study that we did with Lucidworks, but you can see that it's a wide range of titles and sort of departments, number of employees and companies. We did focus on different parts of the world as well. So it's a nice study because it really does bring in also different industries like financial services and retail. So let's tie some of the things I've been talking about back to some of the things we found. So the first key finding we had out of this paper was that companies struggle to stay in lockstep with their customers. And I said earlier, and I proved earlier, just how important that is. Our studies showed that only 35% have a comprehensive customer strategy across all touch points and brands. It's just turned out to be equal actually on both sides. But as you can see from the question, this is just key. Like overall, I feel my company has a comprehensive and integrated strategy for serving external customers across all touch points and brands. You want another word for that? It's called omnichannel, right? And lots of companies are working on omnichannel right now. The other problem is that lots of them even don't have the ability to personalize those experiences across channels. And what is the purpose of creating these cross-channel experiences if they aren't also relevant and of value? We need to level set on a definition for a minute here and realize that personalization doesn't mean making a product recommendation. Personalization means creating relevant, value-added experiences for customers. And as I said earlier, the better you understand customers, the more you're able to do that. So when we ask which of these statements best defines how to use customer search, for example, to personalize experiences for customers and other channels, you can see that 45% say we're able to understand real-time intent from customer search and browse to personalized experience, but a full 55% said otherwise, right? And so they're not able to do that. And so they really are limited in their ability to create this connective tissue between these omnichannel experiences and personalization, both of which are near the top, if not at the top, for most organizations today as far as what their initiatives are. So as you can see, what I'm trying to draw a line for you on is that these touch points, places like search, where you can collect information about the customer, isn't just a tactic. It drives your strategic initiatives that many of you are working on today. The second thing we found is that employees do not have the data and insights they need to serve customers. Now, it's very important to understand a simple concept here, which is that most people don't realize that operations is what leads to great experiences for customers, okay? Customer experiences don't usually stand alone. For everything you hear about Amazon or all these other companies doing that's so great, there's 10 things they do on the back end to make that work and make that happen. You can see, for example, that here, for example, with search, it does not power employees with a complete picture of customer intent. Only 37% said our search solutions, both customer and employees, help us identify gaps between how external customers think and talk about our products and services versus how internal employees do. Those gaps are important because it creates trust. When you're on the same page as the customer or understand it and you create lockstep with customers, you create that trust. In addition, only 34% said our customer search and browse solutions are able to translate unstructured customer inputs into customer intent that customer-facing employees can utilize. Now, I will admit, about 5 years ago, I didn't know what unstructured customer inputs would have meant, so I'm going to explain it for those that don't know. Unstructured data is things like voice, language, what someone says, how they say it, right? Anything that can't very easily be fit into a box, like, for example, the product someone bought or the clicks that they made or their age or their gender, right? These are sort of structured data points. But unstructured data, you know what it is? You know another word for that is? Voice of the customer. Voice of the customer is so important. Less than half respondents say they can use data from those voices customer channels for strategic decision making. As you can see, website search as a primary area for creating dialogues with customers is only at 40%. So we do have some challenges here because for all those great experiences you want to create, the ability to effectively and efficiently operationalize data is how you're going to be able to get to that, both with internal stakeholders and employees and external customers. Number 3, using data to create relevancy does not have to be a luxury for just leaders, quite frankly. While only 33% say our company provides relevant and connected experience across channels on the customer's path to purchase, we can see that when it comes to personalization through search, there is still a ways to go. How much do you agree with this statement? We can accomplish personalization for customers using only the data collected from external search. Now, this is a very low number. Now, you may say, I don't think it's a low number, but let me tell you why I think it's a low number. It's because this is a prime opportunity. This number should be much, much, much higher. Why? Because it is a direct interaction with the customer. It isn't a cookie. It isn't a click, right? There is no guessing. There's the language of the customer that's coming into your organization, and they're telling you exactly what they want, exactly what they need, right? This is why a company like Google is so successful. You may think, wait, Google, where did they come from? Right out of left field. Why am I talking about Google? They're a search engine. Exactly. Because by talking to them, by explaining to them what you want, they're able to find what you need, right? They're not looking at your click data and trying to figure that out. They're not guessing. They're looking at what you say. Unfortunately, most companies today don't use that kind of data strategically. As I talked earlier about the difference between data-led and data-driven, only 11% of those companies that we interviewed said, or that I've interviewed, this is not from the actual Lucidworks study, but this is Forrester data. 11% say they're data-led, only 11%, and only another 48% say they're data-driven. Another 42% say they're way below that curve. And so organizations today need to use those sorts of channels to be able to do that. You cannot become data-led unless your company feels like the data that they're getting is useful and can be used. The voice of the customer data is one of the best places to do that. Another key finding is technology is able to bridge many of those barriers that companies face in trying to achieve their goals. So when we ask, to what degree do your search and browse capabilities connect your employees and customers in a shared experience? 45% say the capabilities provide an extremely connected experience between employees and customers. That's great. But as you can see below, the connection is broken for most or the majority of companies. And so they are not able to exactly create those experiences that you want. Now, here's something that I found fascinating, because we are always talking about machine learning and AI and the technologies that are out there. And I have not been, I will admit, a big fan of AI and machine learning, because I'm a practical analyst, if nothing else. And I know how it can be used, but it's not always being used for the things that people think. And AI machine learning has a ways to go for a lot of customer interactions. But for operations, boy, does it have potential. Boy, does it have potential. In fact, when we ask what levels of computing processing does your current customer search solution possess, you can see that only 44% say they both use rules and machine learning. But really what I thought was more interesting as a statistic was that 40% of respondents said a lack to ML technology and or skills is a barrier to understanding intent and delivering personalized experiences to customers. So, this is significant. This is 2 out of 5 say, we still have a ways to go. And we feel like if we just had these tools in place, we'd be able to get where we need to go. And by the way, where do they need to get to go? Now, this is what a personalization pyramid looks like today. It used to end at advanced segmentation. And I know that we've been talking about, segment of one, single view of the customer for ages. I mean, ever since I've been in business, this has been something we've been talking about. But today it's possible. And I could point you to 50 examples of companies that are doing different stages and different parts of individualization. Notice, though, that this is a pyramid. Doesn't mean that segmentation is dead. What it means is that companies are moving towards individualization, which requires you to engage customers at segments one in real time by listening, capturing, measuring, assessing, and addressing intent across every enterprise touchpoint. Intent can come through in search very easily, right? And so this is where I think companies are missing the boat as an opportunity, because to measure that unstructured data, you do need machine learning. You do need artificial intelligence to be able to do that. Particularly on the unstructured data, you do need that AI component to it. The final thing that I will say about this, and that we found in the study, which I thought was, again, fascinating, and I encourage you to read it. It just goes far beyond the 5 things I'm allocated with enough time to talk to you about today. But alignment with channel agnostic consumers is how to use experiences as competitive weapons. You lose customers when you can't understand their intent or minimize their pain points. Look when we ask them to rank these categories of customer experience attributes in order of your level of customer understanding. Most companies picked customer preferences and customer needs. What they didn't get to, which is really, quite frankly, the stuff that really matters so much, is customer intent and, more importantly, customer pain points. I'm going to prove to you later about customer pain points. But intent matters so much, right? Imagine an experience where you walk into a store and people just start throwing products at you, right? Would you feel like that was a great experience? No, but that's what our digital tools do today, because they don't know our intent, right? And so intent matters. Intent is what is so important, because what a customer needs and what they prefer, quite frankly, if I can be blunt, that's pretty easy to get to. But understanding the conditions under which I need to buy things, the intent. My intent is to research today. My intent is to go into your store and buy it. My intent is to buy that item from Joan. Like, intent goes beyond just what I want to buy. The intent is what I want the customer journey to look like, feel like, and that requires a lot of voice of the customer interactions. So when we got down to the data, we saw some huge lifts in that were found in by having a connected search and browse experience across customer search and employee search. You can see, just lifts in improved customer experiences, improved innovation, growth revenue, differentiating from competitors. So, here's the proof of concept. Here is the fact that it will pay dividends to you, and that's just so important. As you can see on the right-hand side under solution, these are the things you want to be doing, engaging customers across channels. These are all things I've talked about, right? Omnichannel, personalizing the experience, creating real-time analytics, and predictive modeling to understand intent, right? So there's a ways to go on these. There are 2 out of 3 companies that say they agree and completely agree in the ability to do these things, but a third say they're not still. And you probably are one of these companies, quite frankly, that aren't able to do at least one of these, if not a few of them, in your business today. So the way that matters so much is because at the end of the day, this pyramid that we're building about addressing complexity, moving from data, which is your Monday morning reporting, or here's what happened, into insights, which, by the way, don't confuse that with opinions, right? But here is what it means. Here's what that means, that data means. Being able to understand the tools that you have, as I showed in that omnichannel circle earlier, are the ones that are going to bring you the data and get you to the insights. Because then that's the gasoline. Those are the things you need to use predictive and even prescriptive tools. Predictive tools are when you're putting in inputs and you test it and see what the outcome would be. Prescriptive tools are the ones that look at all the data points for you. This is where AI and machine learning really shine, as I said I would talk about later. This is where the point is that this really is going to matter, because I may pick a couple variables that get me from a 3% response to a 5% response on something, but who knows? Maybe there was a combination that could have got me to 15%. You never know, but I'm a human. I'm not going to be able to do that, right? And so these tools are the ones that get us to the very best outcome, not just what you could do, but what you should do to create the best business. So I'm going to go through some steps here just real quick, and we're going to take a look at, here are the recommendations that I would make coming off the paper and coming off some of the Forrester research that we have. 1, identify where you're confusing customer obsession with company obsession and use that data to make a shift. Remember, a customer satisfaction with each passive person is completely situational, and to understand them is to know them, is to love them, is to then create great experiences for them. 2, plan and execute a data strategy, a proactive data strategy for search that is purposeful and proactive in supporting business goals. Here's an exercise I go through with executives. It may seem silly, but I promise you this works. Sit down as a team and say, if we knew X, we could do Y. X is what you would know about the customer, know about your business, know about your employees. Like, what could you do, right? Many people say our data strategy is just using the data we have. That is not a good data strategy. It's a very poor data strategy. Or they'll say we put everything in a data lake. That's not a data strategy. This is a proactive data strategy. When I'm sitting with executives and they hand me all these Post-it notes, I put them up on a wall and I say, congratulations, you just started your first data strategy ever, right? And this is what they go off of. This is the plan, because this is what powers all the things we've been talking about up to this point. 3, take off departmental blinders and think enterprise-wide to optimize the full value of your customer insights. In a nutshell, what I'm saying is, don't think about things in silos. I know many, many companies that collect data in search on a website that doesn't just get used on the website. It gets used in the stores. It gets used in call centers. It gets used in the app, right? It gets used on social media. It can be used lots of places, and vice versa. Those places might be places that you get more information about the customer and use it in other channels, right? And so the idea is you're not just always strategically thinking, I'm going to collect the data that's good for me as a channel. You need to be thinking about what's the data we could go after that could be useful somewhere in the organization. 4, use data and insights to personalize experiences, create value and relevancy. Remember, that's the definition of personalization for both your customers and employees. Look, it is ridiculous to think you can create great experiences for customers that you just basically do not understand. That goes for employees too. And it also goes for the gap between the way that your employees think about things and your customers talking about things, and how that disconnect can create that gap as well. And so it isn't the sexy work. I know it isn't. I'm sorry about that. I wish it was. Everyone wants to create great experiences because that's sexy, right? But to do this is to be able to execute on that sexy work properly so it actually has business results. And finally, don't try to surprise and delight anyone. Remember earlier I talked about pain points? You have to address needs, deliver on preferences, but you also have to understand intent, and you, more importantly on this point, solve their pain points. Many of you probably drive cars, right? What did you think about the last time you drove your car? Did you get out of the car, turn around and go, thank you, car. This is a wonderful car. I just love you so much. Thank you for getting me where to go. No, of course not. We don't do that, right? We're not built that way. We expect things to work. But if that car broke down on where you need to go, would you have some choice words for that car? Yes, you would. Would you remember that moment? Yes, you would. We are far more influenced by pain than by pleasure. And that's not me. That's every study ever been done about us. And so if you can remove pain points, what is a pain point? I'm having to repeat myself. This company talks to me like they don't know me. I put in a search criteria and it came back with the opposite effect, right? I can't find what I need quickly. These are all pain points for the customer. So don't try to create this happy birthday message and put their name on a homepage. That is not personalization. That is not value. Okay. We're trying to create these shopping cart moments. And the only way to get to it is to use data, understand the customer, use these as engagement and data collection touch points, solve their pain points, and create these great experiences that are going to be able to create those satisfaction triggers that make customers happy and keep them loyal to us. So thank you for your time. I'm going to be around for Q&A, and I'm looking forward to that part of the presentation so we can have a dialogue. I encourage you to ask questions, but for now, I'll hand it back over to Lucidworks to continue the conversation here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Brendan. We appreciate that contribution. So let's dig in a little more into this question of what is it that our customers really want? What is it that our users really want when we're serving them experiences and workflows through applications? Well, if you question them, the answer comes back pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I want you to know who I am. Understand understand my preferences, personalize content for me so you're protecting my time. It's kind of like what Brendan said. Don't make me do work to come in and engage with you, but actually facilitate an experience, offer me options, and guide that experience forward. And as we know, that's a very challenging ask when it comes to technology. It can be challenging to serve that in a single channel, in a single application or experience. It creates the need to kind of traverse through separate systems, information and insight silos that are telling us various things about our users, about their behaviors. And ultimately, it creates these disjointed experiences because not only do the users want you to know who they are holistically, but in the moment, they are constantly evolving their needs based on their location, their device, which events have preceded the activity or the action that they're taking. And so not only do we have to understand intent through single channels and single applications, but we have to adapt to that user's intent as that user evolves through their day. And doing this consistently is not only difficult, but it can be expensive. It's expensive to create what would need to be a one-to-one relationship so you can provide sort of a digital concierge service, if you will. As Brendan talked about, the cost of missing this, of getting this wrong, means we lose that customer loyalty. We lose that opportunity to transact. We can lose employees as we don't facilitate their ability to do their jobs better through applications and technology where they feel like they're working upstream against the systems, trying to pull insights out of these outdated systems and make sense of them. And ultimately, what ends up happening is that we make these massive investments for very small bits of progress. So we don't get to see the improvements or the ROI on everything that we're laying out there. This is why we introduced this concept at our user conference of the Connected Experience Cloud to specifically solve this problem of driving personalization through every touch point, through every channel. What CXC allows you to do is it allows you to capture insights from every digital experience, every touch point in which that user engages. And once we capture those insights, we make them available to apply them everywhere. So we can inform every step of that user's journey, break down those information silos so we can really bridge the gap between our operations and our end user experience and empower people to conduct the business that they're here to conduct with us. And this is incredibly important as we get into this digital age in which users are coming through multiple channels and multiple interfaces with very specific intentions in mind. So how do we start to get a better sense of who these users are? How do we provide fidelity? Well, the first thing we can look at is the signal information, the telemetry data that's out there that's telling us in and around that user's intent and their behavior, what their desires actually are, looking at things like search queries, clickstream analysis, how they're transacting, how they're engaging with content, adding things to cart, to ultimately give us that high fidelity picture of who this user is. And this is incredibly important because if we're simply segmenting, if we're simply using statistics and not machine learning to understand this intent, we can make mistakes. Because simply knowing who your user is still sets you up for problems. So like my friend Bob here, if we simply looked for best sellers or trending items to match Bob with a cooler, it can be disastrous, as we can see here. Understanding what we know about Bob allows us to make those decisions in real time. This is what CXC is purpose-built for. And when we talk about customers, when we talk about users, this isn't simply in a commerce context. Our employees, users of our applications, are sharing very rich signals and insights with us about their desires, their profiles, topics and information that they're interested in. And by capturing this information, we can facilitate a much more productive employee experience, meet those expectations that have been crafted out there in consumer tech land, and bring those back into the workplace. So how do we go from capturing these insights to turning them into action? As I talked about earlier, we have to take telemetry and signal data from every user interaction that's available to us. We have to aggregate and understand what those actions are telling us, and make those actions applicable. So when building out your CXC to build your connected experience, it's important to think about 5 key requirements. First is the telemetry data. Are we capturing every bit of user information that's made available to us? Applying machine learning and aggregations to that data so we can make sense of it. Most importantly, discovering those insights that understand and define what a user's intent is. Applying that intent in real time to every application channel so we can create a connected experience through a truly omnichannel paradigm. These are the requirements to be successful with your connected experience cloud. And when you bring this experience from the customer-facing touch points to the operations and the employees is how you truly elevate the impact of these initiatives. We can drive revenue. We can increase that customer experience. We can increase the efficiency to where our operators, our back-end employees can actually see and experience things the way the customers are and help make decisions to guide them to a more productive journey. An example of this would be our customer Lenovo, who was successful in deploying their CXC. What Mark talks about is how you may actually think you know what your users want, but trying to understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish is key. Brendan touched on this as well, that it's not just about trying to guess where the user needs to head or guide them based on your assumptions, but it's really understanding what that intent is at a given moment and maximizing the value of that moment with that customer. So in Lenovo's case, this started with capturing simple signals, understanding the way folks were searching, the way they were engaging, and being able to segment that behavior by geography, by the types of products and services that the customers were engaging in. This alone increased the conversion rates. By enriching that with machine learning, adapting to trends such as events as COVID-19, they were able to dramatically increase their customer satisfaction scores. Moving towards intent, watching how the patterns were changing, how consumers who were buying personal products and consumer products were moving towards business products for home offices, allowed Lenovo to increase the revenue by 23% of what was happening in search versus browse. And then applying that personalization in real time, being able to dynamically guide these users, had a significant impact on the click-through rate. And it's not just good enough to solve these things in a single application or a single channel, as we've talked about before, but in Lenovo's case, they have to serve through multiple channels, B2B, B2C, multiple geographies, and maximize the impact of all of the insights and signals that were being captured to deliver on that productive experience. By connecting the dots between all of these pieces and enriching that user experience, Lenovo was able to drive search revenue up by 175%. So remember, People are blocked from being successful because of the silos that exist. In order to connect experiences, to enrich experiences and meet that user's intent, we have to break down the silos that sit between different business units, between different systems, and centralize these insights into a place where we can capture user behavior from anywhere and make those insights available everywhere. What I invite you to do is think about, what does a connected experience mean for your company, for your business, for your employees, for your customers, and envision that connected world in which those insights are sharing seamlessly between every workflow and interaction. At Lucidworks, we love watching the transformation that the ingenuity and the innovation that our customers bring to our platform can drive within their business, and we're excited to partner with you on imagining what your connected experience can be. So thank you for joining us today, and I think we're going to move to a Q&A portion.
Yes, thank you, Will, and thank you, Brendan. Let's now move into our live Q&A. First of all, thanks for the questions that you've already sent in. And we're still taking questions, so remember to keep using that Q&A button. Keep the questions coming. And without waiting any longer, let's answer the first question now.
Great question here. Let me give this one to you first, Will. How can data-driven personalization be applied to email marketing?
It is a great question. So one of the most important things that we discovered in our research and in working with our customers was back to this concept of an insight silo. And what this meant was that lots of work was going on throughout the organization to understand personalization, segmentation, to create more context for users, but it was being done in isolation of other workflows. So email marketing teams working independently of web teams, working independently of promotions, recommendations, other parts of the system. So with the CXC, the beauty is that you can request information about that particular user at the time of the email and dynamically personalize that email with the exact same insight you would use to personalize a web experience. And so it's really about connecting those experiences through those channels and ensuring that whatever we capture and make sense of in one place, we can apply it everywhere.
Excellent. Brendan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think specifically getting back to some of the things we said earlier, making sure that you don't just, and I agree with what Will just said, but making sure also that you take that from a proactive approach and saying, what's the art of the possible? What could we be doing in email if we had the right data to drive that? Or, what could we be asking for or putting into our emails that could be used as data capture points for strategically doing things in other channels? So it's not just what you learn, it's what you've chosen to learn. And there's both directions you can go with that. So I think, honestly, again, bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, when you're able to think of a channel, not just as an engagement channel, but also as a data collection point and the strategic opportunities for that, you start to really see how potential can really be reached in all your channels.
Fabulous. Here's another question, and this one is directed to you, Brendan, so we'll stick with you. What types of results have you seen from your clients who connect CX and EX well?
Yeah, so I think there's numerous KPIs that you can go to. A lot of them are fairly specific to particular companies, but one of the things that we found in aggregate was that companies were about 61% more effective at doing personalization when they were able to bring together data from multiple points and bring it into a single source. And so, the challenges that I hear from companies a lot are from individuals that tell me on the down low that, I agree with you, Brendan. I think we should bring data together. But you know what? When I get asked about, from my executive teams, what's going to be the value? What's the ROI of bringing all this data and putting it together? It is hard to put together an ROI to say, what does a 360 review of the customer yield? What does it benefit? Because you don't know yet. And it's the more important point is you're certainly not going to be able to do certain things that you would like to test and learn the ROI of if you could do it. So you're really just handcuffing yourself. But again, you want to hang your hat on a number that I know that we've been able to vet pretty deeply in some of the other work we've done at Forrester. Again, it's over 60%, 61% exactly of companies say we're far more effective at personalization, or they get more results from personalization from companies who have already done the process of bringing data from multiple points in to better understand the customer in a single way.
Excellent. And here's another question. The listener asked, this all looks rather complex. How hard is it to make the machine learning happen without having dozens of data scientists on our team? And I can take a first cut at this, and then feel free to pile on, Brandon or Will. And actually, Brendan, we've been working with another Forrester analyst, Shel Carlson, who really talked about the concept of project-based versus product-based AI. And this is a great example of, a lot of people think we need AI and they start from scratch and they do a project-based approach, but that runs into a lot of cross-functional challenges. The business maybe can't communicate to the data scientists exactly what they need, and then the IT team can't actually deploy what the models that the data science team creates. So we've been talking, based on that insight, we've been talking with our customers about following a product-based approach and taking Fusion, for example, that has the models within it, tackling those easy kind of ubiquitous use cases first, and then extending out from there. Is that, build out on that a little bit for us, Brendan? Is that the approach that you recommend? How do you see people sidestepping some of the common challenges of AI adoption if they follow that path?
Yeah, I think, I think what we find at Forrester many times is that there's two feelings that occur that cause companies to get a little hesitant about using technology. Well, actually three. One is that this technology is going to put me out of a job. So if it can do the work for me, then what good am I? Well, I would, encourage you to realize that it still takes people to run all these things, right? And so think of technology not as someone that's going to do your job for you, but make you look like a rock star doing your job. I think that's number one. Number two are companies that think like, I need to look at everything that these tools do and manage it at the most finite level, right? And the reality is that no, you don't. What you need to do is you need to manage exceptions. And so in your data and analytics, hopefully you have some exception reporting where things fall out of a certain standard deviation. Those are the things you need to really look at, but you don't need to check everything when everything's sort of status quo. And the third thing is that you're in this alone. Quite frankly, what I tell all my clients, and I'm not just saying this because I'm in this webinar, but I say it all the time to my clients directly, which is lean on your vendors. Lean on them. They know what they're doing. They built the system. They know what it's meant to do and how it's capable of doing it. And they are not there just to sell you software and say, bye-bye, have fun, good luck, right? They want to see you succeed. They want to see you have success. And so I think part of your plan is to not just have a session, being trained on the features and functionality of the solutions you use, but rather having a strategy session with your vendors, making them really strategic partners, just not just solution providers, and having them help you and guide you on some of the best business practices, in being able to deliver on these things. Because I think it is fairly new, but what I got to remind everybody is that not for the vendors that are working in the space. They've been doing it a while, and they have many customers they've already worked with. So to me, this is a great opportunity to get into that.
Will, do you want to add on to that as a vendor?
Yeah, no, I think
we've worked with.
Brendan really nailed it. I will say, I mean, from our perspective and in the customers that we work with, there's often a concern, if you will, about the impact of machine learning and the maintenance of machine learning. I think to Brendan's point, just to follow on, what we work with clients to do is to really kind of dispel the FUD in and around those technologies, and let's focus in on the problems that we're solving. There's a number of workflows that we can enhance operations. As a vendor, to Brendan's point, we partner very closely with our customers. We bring dozens of models to our customers that have been proven across a variety of environments. And so what we look to do is to provide that immediate uplift and then work with the client to sort of iterate on top of that. And don't forget about your domain experts. I think this is another thing that companies are missing in the transformation towards AI, is that to me, what it does is it really empowers a set of the workforce that has that domain knowledge, that has that continuity. We see our job as vendors, and really what I see the role of artificial intelligence in industry is about providing choices to those SMEs so so they can plot the final mile, so they can understand whether this recommendation, this workflow contextually makes sense. And so while there are things that concern people in terms of, employment and that, I do think that we're going to see a lot more empowering of folks who can take more advantage of technology, not less advantage of technology, with the innovations that have been coming over the last couple of years.
Yeah, if I could add on to what Will was just saying, I think I absolutely agree with everything he just said, and I think it's really important that you heard me say that organizational silos are a big inhibitor. I worked in retail for a very long time, and one of the things that I learned to make friends in other parts of the organization is to admit to them I don't know something, and they do, and I would love for them to help me out, and that and out of total respect and all this kind of stuff. And so if you are in a state where you're like, I'm not a data expert, I'm not good at data, I'm good at search, I'm good at customer service, whatever your role is that has to do with this particular sort of area, and you're saying to yourself, I'm not good with data. Well, you want to break some organizational silos? Go out to people that are in your organization that are good at working with data. Maybe you even have a dedicated team that does this, and ask them to be a part of this project. I always advise companies that one of the best ways to break that huge number of organizational silos that you have is not to be exclusive, but rather inclusive in your projects across the organization, and respect people's expertise and bring them in. People love to feel valued, especially these days when everyone's so concerned about their jobs. They like to feel valued. They like to feel like they're contributing. It creates job security. It creates goodwill. So to me, this is a great time to kind of make that sort of leap into breaking down those silos, creating a new culture for yourself, and reaching across the aisle and saying, let's do this together, and let's call this a win for as many departments as possible.
That's excellent color. And let me bounce off that and maybe come back to you, Will. We got a question here that's a little bit more, talking about reaching across the aisle. This one might be a little bit more towards the IT side of the house. The question is, we manage our own data center and don't run our site search in the cloud. Can we still aspire to a connected experience cloud if we're not really in the cloud?
Absolutely. When I think about, the cloud paradigm and what that actually means, the vendors and obviously the cloud providers will have a certain point of view. To me, it's really about providing that experience back into your developers, into your internal IT. So the idea that you have insights that are readily available, that they're real time, that there's not the operational overhead that needs to be thought about when accessing them, that you can unify access to this information with context in a way that makes it readily available and embeddable across the organization. So the short answer is absolutely yes. There's obviously going to be some nuance depending on how you're organized. Those silos, I cannot emphasize enough, are typically going to be your biggest blocker. It's not technology. But again, quick wins, looking at incremental increases, and really providing value back into those counterparts that you collaborate with. When you can share information back and forth, it creates a lot less friction in that process. But running your own private CXC, absolutely. We have clients that are doing this today, and be more than happy to talk more with you about that.
All right, and it looks like we have one more question from the audience, which will give us enough time to wrap and let people get on to their next thing. This one is takes an industry focus, and let me throw this one to you, Brendan. What industries or types of companies would benefit most from offering these connected experiences? Is there a sweet spot that people should think about?
Yeah, I would say that there's levels of benefit. You're never going to go wrong. Never going to go wrong better understanding your customer, period, end of story, full stop, right? Like that just creates so much power for your organization. I really hope, it's a good question, but I really hope that what I've shared during the course of my presentation, my portion, and Will's of course too, that what you took away from this is that, when you take a proactive approach, you'll uncover things you wouldn't even have thought about, right? Being able to take advantage of. So you may think, well, given the company we are today, we couldn't take advantage of this stuff. But I'm encouraging you not to be the company you are today. I'm encouraging you to be a different kind of company, the kind of company that takes a proactive approach to data, a proactive approach to learning about your customers and leveraging the insights that you get, But if I got industry specific, if I could exclude like one category, I would say it's in the category of items where the product is extremely easy to understand. Where you don't have a lot of questions about it. If you're in something that is so commoditized and so generic that like maybe you're in the milk industry, right? Like something that's so everybody kind of knows what this is, right? And you don't have a lot of questions about it, and you're not therefore not going to get a lot of voice of the customer in your interactions. That's probably not it. But anyone beyond that, if you think for a second that your products, if you have enough questions and enough interactions with your customers on a direct basis, then there's opportunities. So there's far more companies that could take advantage of this and industries that could take advantage of this than there are not. So it's mostly probably in the commoditized sort of, low end kind of stuff that everybody understands. But, the minute you get to maybe even just a toaster level, once you become as complicated as a toaster, you probably could utilize something like this and beyond that.
Will, anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think, again, I completely agree. When we started this journey as a company and in talking to investors and trying to kind of build a thesis around the market, one of the things that was clear to me was how often we have to engage with a digital experience, not just in buying products and services, but kind of throughout our, call it kind of ecosystem engagement as we're out there in cyberspace, out there in the world. And so as you look to application services, most importantly, look to your customers, I think there's endless opportunity to create loyalty, to create a better, more productive experience, to enhance the value of those experiences back to the organization. And so what I encourage folks to do is, again, don't get sort of caught up in boiling the ocean. Let's look at workflows. Let's look at areas where you can simply just provide a better, less friction in the workflow, and a better experience back into that customer, and then build from there. For some folks, to Brendan's point, this might be just a couple of operations and applications and you're done. For others, this can be sort of a long iterative journey. Our goal is to ensure that we are reaching a point of value in every step. And so, again, happy to work with folks and understand kind of where they are in their own journey, as well as sort of conceptualize what does a connected experience cloud look like for your business. I love talking with retailers. We spend a lot of time with the leading retailers in the world, really. But where I get really excited is when you start to ideate with banks, with insurance companies, with state and local governments about how they want to better serve their users in a more unified way, and taking lessons that we've learned out there in digital commerce and applying those to every experience that's about really meeting those expectations of the user and mapping them to the outcomes that the business really cares about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to add on to what Will just said there, when I said more complicated than a toaster, basically everything outside of retail is more complicated than a toaster, right? Whether it's financial services or insurance or, even utilities can get fairly complicated. I wouldn't even exclude the U.S. government in this one, right? I think there's just every industry out there could benefit from this kind of an approach.
Well, thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Will. I really enjoyed this conversation. We're at the top of the hour. Really want to thank all of our attendees for their time. Thank you for spending this with us, and enjoy a safe, healthy, and happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.